those are 2 losses for each of those teams and probably fan bases too, especially in Detroit. Those are going to sting for a while. I can live with losing 34-10 to a better team like the Texans did a week ago. Like I was okay. I was okay like 6 hours later. But those are the way the Ravens lost with all the stupidity, and the Lions are the big one everybody's talking about. I mean, just like
right, it was with all the stupidity.
There's no other way to put it. They were just
it was just a heaping mounds of stupidity all over the place
in a very winnable game, and so. And then the Lions, which is, I mean, this will be the one that I think most people probably around the country are talking about, because the Lions were 30 minutes away from doing like a Chicago Cubs thing from back in 2016 and getting to a Super Bowl when they've never been to one before, and they just unraveled in the most Lion way possible. With the Dan Campbell decisions are getting a lot of scrutiny on 4th down, 2 4th-down decisions to go for it instead of kick field goals in the second half. But, boy, some of the things that started happening in that game, you're like, this is what a cursed team looks like, man.
You know what? I honestly felt like in both of these games, it's easy in hindsight to say this, but I think it would probably bear out if you look at kind of some of the, like, if you went through and classified boneheaded decisions, clutch situations, dropped balls, things like that. It felt like both of the teams with the most playoff experience took advantage of it and used it to their advantage, whether it's the way they played in the second half or like the things they did and did not do, all of that. But the turnaround with the 49ers especially, I mean, it hinged on so many kind of flukish things there in the third quarter. The just gimme interception that turned into an Ayuk reception at the 5-yard line. I think if they don't make that play right there, it's very unlikely that the 49ers even spark a turnaround.
Yeah, that was preceded by the decision by Dan Campbell to go for it on 4th and 2 instead of kick a makeable field goal.
Yeah.
And on 4th and 2, they had a play. I mean, it hit the receiver in the hands, Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds is going to be another guy who's not going to be able to sleep for the next 5 days. Crucial drop on 4th and 2, which wouldn't have been an easy catch, but it's a catch an NFL receiver should make. The drop on 3rd and 9 a little later on in the second half by Reynolds is the one that's really going to haunt him. That was just took his eye off the ball. But it felt like, Seth, that 4th and 2 decision, up 24-10, you got a chance to go up 3 scores. Dan Campbell's getting a lot of heat for this today. They don't execute on 4th and 2. And then a couple plays later, boy, it's on the TV in our studio right now. It bounces off the safety. Brock Purdy, who'd been awful up to this point, overthrows a deep ball that should have been an interception, hits the DB in the face inside the 5-yard line, and Brandon Ayuk makes a circus catch of it. It felt like that 4th and 2 decision was like this karmic gateway to then some real Lions things actually happening. Like they score right after that circus catch, and then the very next series, Jahmyr Gibbs fumbles on the first play inside Lions territory. Next thing you know, it's 24-24. They've scored 2 touchdowns. The Niners have to tie it up in a matter of 4 minutes in the third quarter. And
that Gibbs fumble, too, was on a play that was botched. It was somebody was going the wrong way on that. Miscommunication by either Gibbs or Goff or whomever it was. I'm okay with without even breaking down the analytics too much, other than to say that it seems like a lot of the analytics people say it's pretty much a wash in that decision in that situation. And if it's a wash, look, the Lions have made it that far by doing just that, and they very easily, like, they had the situations where they could have made those. And I think if you just even look at the game flow too, at that point when the Lions went forward on 4th and 2 with about 6.5 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, Brock was 11 for 21 for 153 yards.
Bad,
yeah. Like they had not been able to move the ball, and I appreciate like what Dan Campbell was going for there. I don't think it was like an overtly meat-headed play or anything. And I also think that all of their decisions on 4th down are also like guided by the fact that the kicker they're using he's not a good kicker. He's a really bad kicker.
He's bad. The second decision to go forward on 4th down, I think, is the one that probably invites even more scrutiny. You're down 27-24, and you got a chance to kick a 47-yard field goal to tie the game, and you go for it on 4th and 3, and you don't get it. That one was more of a conventional. You didn't get it, like you didn't execute. Like the Josh Reynolds drop on 4th and 2, you had a play that was there.
Yeah.
The 4th and 3 was probably like the bad side of Jared Goff, where he got a little bit of pressure. He was asked to do things improvisationally, and then he just kind of threw the ball into an empty area, and it just landed incomplete. That one will invite more scrutiny because it's a 47-yard field goal. Again, as you point out, Seth, their kicker's not good. But still, I think, honestly, I think 31 other teams probably kick a field goal to tie the game in that situation. Here was Dan Campbell after the game explaining, or at least sticking up for his decisions.
I just felt really good about us converting and getting our momentum and not letting them play long ball. They were bleeding the clock out. That's what they do. And I wanted to get the upper hand back, and it's easy hindsight, and I get it, I get that. But I don't regret those decisions, and that's hard. It's hard because, we didn't come through. It wasn't able to work out, but I don't. And I understand the scrutiny I'll get. That's part of the gig, man.
Okay, so as far as the obviousness of going for the field goal in that situation, I think a lot of people look at it and think, oh, okay, 47-yard field goal, that's an easy 3 points. Why don't you take it? That kicker, Badgley, in his career, he's 13 of 24 from 45 to 50 yards. He's a 50-50 guy from 45 to 50 yards, whereas the Lions are 70% on going for it on 4th and 2 or 4th and 3. So just by that math alone, there's an argument to be made for him going there. And then I also think, I think when people do it in their minds, they just think, well, oh yeah, it's 47-yard field goal, no big deal. That's an easy 3, and it just wasn't with that kid. He's not a good kicker.
No. I thought the most egregious game management thing, honestly, even more so than going for it on 4th down, because as you've pointed out, this is what they've done all year. There's at least one of those I would have kicked the field goal. Towards the end of the game, they're down by 2 scores. There's about a minute to go in the game. They've only got 2 timeouts left. Or no, they had. I forget. I think they only had 2 timeouts left. Well, they had all three. They had all 3, and they had 3rd and goal. And they run the ball with a minute and change to go, and they don't get the touchdown, so they have to burn. One of their timeouts, and that essentially means you've got to get an onside kick at that point. If you had all 3 of your timeouts and you score a touchdown there, then you can kick off and hope that you get a 3 and out there. I mean, I get it. The win probability is very, very low at that point. It got a little bit of scrutiny from the broadcast team. It got way more scrutiny from Detroit people in their post-game show, I can tell you that. I listened to the post-game show for the Lions last night. Yeah, it's a hobby of mine. I like to listen to losing post-game shows. I've had a lot of practice here from 2020 through 2022, listening to it as I hosted it.
You can get tips for how to handle it.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun to listen to other people suffer sometimes. Pettycast. But I thought that was an egregious error, and that's a Ben Johnson thing as much as anything else. You had to burn a timeout. You had all 3 of them left, and you had to burn one with a minute and change to go. That essentially is a 40-second coupon that you just burned, and now you got to make an onside kick if you're going to – and they ended up scoring down there, too, on 4th down. They scored, and they had to try an onside kick, and they didn't get it. So little things like that. There's so many little things the Lions did wrong in the second half that go unnoticed because they did so many big things wrong. The punt that landed inside the 5-yard line that the guy tried to catch – for the Lions and walked into the end zone with it instead of just knocking it backwards, little. It's like that decision to go for it on 4th and 2, which again I don't think was a terrible decision. It ended up being the wrong decision. It was the gateway for all the weird and stupid stuff to start happening for the Lions.
I think part of it too is that I was really tempted at various points in the first half to think okay, well that's just Brock Purdy. That's Brock Purdy. But then in the second half, there are a lot of moments where I was thinking, that's Jared Goff. What are you going to do? That's you can't expect brilliance out of Jared Goff. Brock Purdy ran really appropriately well. He ran when he needed to run. I thought that's one thing that Lamar Jackson seemed he almost seemed painfully opposed to running. And I worry sometimes when guys have tried to recreate themselves, which he has successfully recreated himself as a dual threat, like a genuine dual threat, passer and runner. Man, you get into these playoff games, and if it calls for running, run. Just run. And Lamar Jackson he ended up running 8 times, but I can't remember if there was even a single called run There was at least one called run by the Ravens, and part of that was because of the way the Chiefs were blitzing as much as they did. But I felt like even after he was getting past the line of scrimmage, it was almost like he was still looking to pass.
Yeah.
Even after he was past the line of scrimmage. Like there was a psychological block there or something. Man, just run.
Yeah.
Like that the Chiefs defense, if there was one thing that was slept on really going into this conference championship weekend, I think it was just how good the Chiefs defense is.
They're good.
And what they did to Josh Allen last week and what they did to Lamar Jackson yesterday.